Imagine beer being sold for 10 cents each at a Major League Baseball game.
Now it's a full-scale riot.
Let me tell you, it was crazy.
Actually, you don't have to imagine it because it really happened. 6,000 brewskis led to nudity, fireworks, players fighting fans, and an all-out riot in Cleveland.
Personally, I'd like to see a couple of them got whacked on the head.
10-cent beer night has to be one of the worst ideas ever, right? In June of 1974, one of the wildest promotions in baseball history, and that is saying a lot, created a lot of chaos in Cleveland. This was super cheap beer, enraged fans, and a powder keg of emotion all fused together on a hot night on the shores of Lake Erie.
This has been a night of blatant stupidity.
It was not the first time this had been attempted at a Major League game. So what made this particular night so insane? Before we get to the beer, let's check on some of the things going on in Cleveland in the 1970s. We had blizzards, woeful economic misfortune, and the river caught fire. For real. Anyway, back to baseball. If you can believe it, there was a 5-cent beer night in Cleveland in 1971, and that was not a disaster. Longtime Cleveland sports writer Dan Coughlin explains,
Every team was doing those beer nights by then. The first one was Nickel Beer Day. I would take my kids to baseball games. There'd be 5,000 people there, and they were the same 5,000 every night.
Now here's an important detail that is sometimes glossed over. May 29th, a week prior to 10-cent beer night in Cleveland, the Rangers hosted the Tribe in Arlington. A takeout slide by Rangers second baseman Lenny Randle heightened tensions. Now let's take a moment to pause and acknowledge Lenny Randle's music career. In Randle's next at-bat, things got spicy. So these two teams became unfriendly. A week after the brawl, 10-cent beer night was already on the schedule in Cleveland. And guess who was in town?
The Rangers then were coming up here to be our opponent on our beer night. And so we had a radio guy here, Pete Franklin. For a week, he promoted revenge against the Rangers when they come up here on our beer night. People came in a vengeful mood. Many of them arrived at the stadium half drunk.
2 days earlier, the Royals had been in town and the attendance in Cleveland was 4,205. On 10-cent beer night, the attendance spiked to just over 25,000. That number doesn't sound too crazy, except for the fact that there were only 50 security guards on hand and no additional police. But we do know in the past they had beer nights like this that went relatively smoothly. Now this is 50 years ago, so you might be wondering how much was 10 cents worth back in 1974. If we're adjusting for inflation, that would work out to roughly 66 cents for a beer at a ball game today. Insane. Here's an important detail. Customers were limited to 6 beers. Not for the entire night, but 6 beers at one time. Okay, so here we are, June 4th, 1974. The Rangers are in town, and the crowd is angry, probably already over-refreshed, and it's very hot and humid. The Indians' director of sales and marketing, Carlo Fizio, called it a perfect storm. Before the game even started, Rangers manager Billy Martin, who was never known for his level-headedness, came out of the dugout and heckled fans. Well, they heckled back. In other parts of the stadium, fans started lighting fireworks and smoke bombs. Former Indians promotions director Jackie York said, "Over the years, you recognize familiar faces." This wasn't the regular crowd. It was estimated that 60,000 cups of beer were poured. But the concession stands couldn't keep up with the demand for beer, so fans were allowed to line up just beyond the outfield fence where beer trucks were parked. The problem with that plan was there simply were not enough staff to pour the beer quickly enough. They got spooked by the throngs of crazed fans and walked off the job. To be abundantly clear, the fans started drinking beer straight from the taps. What was happening on the field? In the second inning, a woman ran onto the field and flashed the crowd. She also tried to kiss home plate umpire Nestor Chilak. He declined because he was not in a kissing mood. Fair. In the fourth inning, a streaker ran out and slid into second base. In the fifth, 2 fans jumped over the outfield wall and mooned Rangers outfielders. By the later innings, things got really wild. Fans threw beers at Billy Martin during a mound visit. Then someone threw an empty wine jug at Rangers first baseman Mike Hargrove. The lunatics were running the asylum. In the 9th inning, a fan named Terry Yurkich jumped onto the field and stole Rangers outfielder Jeff Burrow's hat. Here's Terry's account.
He didn't say a word. Our eyes met. I looked at him and he looked at me. He kicked me right in the thigh. I had perfect spike marks on my thigh.
The Rangers rushed out of the dugout to help Burroughs and brought their bats with them. By that time, it was an all-out riot.
There has to be 200 people and more coming on the field.
Players from both teams were fighting fans, pieces of chairs were being hurled from the stands, and the police were totally overwhelmed. It was pure chaos.
The umpires finally called a forfeit, and they couldn't have resumed the game anyway because somebody had stolen all 3 bases. I mean, a fan. Somebody walked out of that stadium with the bases.
Who has those bases? I need to know. How much are you selling them for?
The people here in Cleveland were primed for some action.
I think that a lot of it was manifested through the press and the radio media. The disc jockeys and the writers and the TV press media, all this thing is saying, well, let's get revenge on the Rangers for what happened in Texas.
It was just a case of an awful lot of people being a little bit too drunk, and just too many guys got out of hand.
So what happened to the staff that planned 10-cent beer night? Were they fired? No. They were sent off to Milwaukee to see how the Brewers did their beer nights. When they revisited the idea in Cleveland, the fans were given a limited number of beer coupons. Wait, couldn't the Brewers have just told them that over the phone? Why did they have to go to Milwaukee to learn that they should just give them a limited number of beer? Why did you have to go and learn that in person? Anyway, at least we have this moment in history to remember and make fun of.